to watch Survivor and slog through the nadir. Then season 40's awesomeness will make you wanna cheer. We're all just so excited to watch these winners play. But we're still lazy, so this podcast comes out on Friday. John will make some dumb jokes, and he likes to yell and scream. But now we're watching 20 winners play, and it feels like a dream. We'll spend the whole time freaking out and judging the best move. And anything that Tony does, you know that we'll approve. It's the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. Winners at War!
Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I am John. My co-host is Andy. And this week we are talking episode, I don't even know anymore, probably 13-ish of Survivor Winners at War. The season clearly dominated by this season's most powerful force, Michele. Andy, how much are you enjoying this season of Michele?
I enjoy it the most I've ever enjoyed a season of Michele, I think would be an accurate way of putting it.
It's a very high bar.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were high proponents of her last season now. Look, no, this isn't going to be another episode of us just straight, yelling about her, because I think we've given people the impression that we hate Michele, which is not accurate. I don't hate Michele Fitzgerald. I've never met her. She's probably fine. I hate Michele fans. That's where it's at, right?
I mean, pretty much. Yeah, I don't even hate the Michele fans. I hate the, justifications and the, ways that they contort arguments to fit Michele being a Survivor savant.
I also like how they're all challenge fans this week. That's a new touch.
How many times can you move the goalposts is what I'm wondering.
We still have at least 3 more hours to find out, but we should talk first about this 2 hours. Because what an effective use of a 2-hour block of television that was it not?
I feel like a running theme in this podcast has been hey, why is everybody so quick to judge the editing? And, the editors are robbing us. They don't know how to do their jobs and blah, blah, blah. And we're quick to defend them. You know what? This show's been on for 20 years. These people are professionals. They're good at what they do. A 10-minute recap at the end of that episode really made me question that, though.
Yeah, and everybody, I want you to stay tuned for our 10-minute recap to end this this episode. It won't be covering the Survivor season. It'll be covering our season. It's I remember that time we yelled about this thing, and then this other thing. You better get ready. Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the reasons why it's good not to always just jump to the conclusion of the people who produce the television show that we love so much are terrible at their jobs is so that we have some, grounds to stand on when they do something this dumb.
Yeah, it's not everything they do is dumb. It's most of the time they're pretty good. Here they fucked up because there's just... The only thing I could think of is this maybe is somehow, pandemic related? Did they maybe have to do this because they're attempting this whole Zoom-based reunion show next week, and they really, had to have a lot of time for potential technical failures, and I don't know what the hell the cause could possibly be, but I just know that it was a very poor decision to put this thing at the end of this episode.
Yeah, and shout out to commenter Violina23, who I believe shared that idea last night. And it makes a lot of sense that, maybe this episode originally, as cut, was supposed to, end with the Edge of Extinction challenge, which would make a lot of sense. It was certainly leading there. That is the last of the original footage we get. And then they're no, let's move that to the finale because we're going to we want as little of, people's, upward facing, chinned angled lights blasting on their face, presentation on television as we can. Now, the one caveat is the thing they showed us is generally the thing they show us to start the finale. Right. So it almost would make you think it's a 1-to-1 swap out. But maybe they extended that to fill the challenge time. Maybe that was originally like a 7-minute thing, and then they pushed it to 10. Because that would make some sense, and if so, I support it. I mean, first off, just in general, I support eating away at as much reunion time as possible. Any season, that's fine. Particularly this season, there's just been some disastrous audio visual presentations of corporations trying to be like, hey, let's get people to film themselves. So that's a thing. And also, I know a lot of people why don't they recut this season? Because they have so much time to fill. To make longer episodes and all of that. But for one, this coming from a place of love, people are so into this season, and the people that are on it, they want more. But it's I don't think all of the thousands of hours of footage is stored in the cloud. I don't know if the editors could go in and just create a 2-hour episode. So it would make sense. Oh, what do we do? All right, well, we can fill with montage. That we can do. But crafting 2-hour episodes or 90-minute episodes out of thin air, I don't know if they can do that while also working from home as well.
Yeah, my thought was that they might have had a certain amount of episodes banked before this all started going down, and maybe they had 90 minutes worth of episode here, and then they only have access to so much footage, and they were like, well, shit, I don't know, improvise. Throw in the thing that we were going to start the reunion with. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. No, if it's something like that, it would make sense. I doubt it'll ever come out when it was. One thing it made me think of is, you often get fans clamoring for, this should be a 90-minute episode. They should do that. And I think that's fans being realistic in that, stretching a 3-day period. And this was not... Well, actually, this might have been 3 days, but it was, a full period of, challenges, votes, that sort of thing. But out to 2 hours is that would be really difficult. But the thing is 90 minutes isn't really a normal chunk of time on a primetime network schedule. I don't know if it's impossible. I do think probably some American Idols might have done that from time to time, but it's weird. And especially CBS, they need to give their, put Navy SEALs or whatever that the show is on mute time. That's another hour block. So you can't, and starting hour-long shows on the half hour is just not a thing that happens. I don't know any advertiser in the world who'd want to pay for it. So a 90-minute just isn't really realistic given, how network television still operates in the year 2020. I think what we saw is what you would happen with the 90-minute. They have 90 minutes, but we got to make it,
2 hours.
120. Obviously, commercials, whatever, but 120 block. And this is what you get. You get an extra, segment at the place nobody really likes that the show has. And then you get this montage to end the episode, getting people ready to see that finale that I'm sure they were otherwise kind of lukewarm on.
And it was weird because they do this confessional from Amber. It's very emotional and sums up their whole time on Edge of Extinction. And that would be a good place to maybe even cut off the episode, but at least end Edge of Extinction. And then they roll on and oh, now people are buying, advantages and idols and peanut butter and oh, okay, so I guess we're proceeding to a challenge then. Nope. Slam on the brakes, fucking skid to a halt. Here's a clips package. Oh, okay, that was weird. I was DMing Matt as the episode is airing, going, so are we gonna get a challenge or no? I can't tell if this is where this is heading because we're ticking down on the time and it's getting really close and suddenly stop. No chance at a challenge now.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, I don't watch it live or, obviously none of this is live, but I'm watching it recorded, so I don't really have the full sense of the clock tells me there's still this much time. But I do fast forward through the commercials, so I felt man, there's a lot of time left. So I didn't know that there was full 10 minutes when that thing started, and so I wasn't as antsy as it seems like a lot of people, but it was still kind of the same deal. It's okay. I wasn't upset because I'm not watching live. I don't have that segment of time, but it was more man, they really just didn't have enough to fill. And it just, it felt hey, this is what TV is going to be now. We got to find some ways to fill things up, and this is a way. And as recaps go, it was reasonably exciting. It was fun to see Adam try to play. I laughed again, see Adam try to play the podium.
Still funny.
Still great. There's a few other moments, but seriously though, I think they made sure to show the props part. This thing here
that you couldn't get off. You want to play this? Yeah.
Can I? God bless him. Seriously though, that was so. I mean, it made me feel like this has been great, but man, just a weird way to end a show.
And yet,
but much better way to start a podcast. Just spending about 10 minutes talking.
Yeah. And yet the start of this episode, stellar, because we got everybody's coming back. They're all talking about the vote and, talking about where they're going to go next. Then we get Sarah talking to Ben because they realize, oh no, what we need to do is get over this whole Ben versus Jeremy thing because this is not going to be advantageous for us. So Tony's like, I don't know how we're going to do this. Sarah's like, I got this. Goes off, has this conversation with Ben, which is a fucking masterclass. Like, totally makes Ben feel as though he is in control. She essentially, she spells out, I needed him to feel like he's going to drive. Like, that's the thing that's going to keep him loyal. Otherwise, he's going to betray us. He's going to, realize he has no power here. So give him this sense of power, which is something that we've talked about a lot over the years. Like, to get people involved in your alliance, make them think that they are somehow part of the, executive committee of your alliance. But the fact that she essentially says to him, we're really stuck, we need this to happen. This is clearly a thing that needs to happen, but, it's obviously your call. It seems like there's really just the two options, but, it's your call. And Ben, fortunately, chooses the correct option that she was hoping for. I can guarantee you, if he'd chosen incorrectly, she would have been like, let's circle back here. Because she was on point.
Oh, no, it was fantastic. And it was the confessionals that really made it, that she was selling why she was doing it. And just the pure recognition of, Ben will get antsy. He will get angry if we go up to him again and say, not Jeremy now. He needs to feel like he has a control. So let's give him this. So it was perfect. And I think it also helps explain, and we're going to get into this more later, the question that people have been asking is why is nobody going after Sarah and Tony? Well, I think it's stuff like this. They are making people feel like they had moves. I think Nick is only learning now, if he is at all, that, he didn't, the things he was doing was only because people were letting him do, and it wasn't beneficial to him. It was beneficial to others. They're not, just controlling and dictating. They're, letting people feel like this is their move. And that is essential in a season like this, where not many people, I'm not going to say no one, but not many people feel like they want to just kind of ride it out on somebody else's plan. Everybody feels like things that they're doing should be of their own doing. And if you can make them feel that way, well, not actually being that way, so much.
Especially at this point in the game. I think everybody at this exact stage wants to feel like they have some measure of control heading towards the final 5, 4, whatever. You want to feel like you're in some sort of power position and not the bottom of the totem pole, because then that's a little more tenuous. You want to feel like, if I'm not the number 1 in this alliance, I'm at least the crucial number 2. So she did a freaking phenomenal job of selling Ben there, and the juxtaposition of her talking to Ben and then the immediate cut to Ben talking to Tony as though it's his idea, and Tony being like, oh man, you think so? You think we should do that? Oh, marvelous. I'm so consistently impressed with Sarah and Tony and their domination of these past few episodes.
Yeah, and then to really highlight how great it was, we have the contrast of Ben's social game, where he's like, I got me a plan. I'm going to, totally, light a fire between Michele and Jeremy. And he's no Sarah in this
He
regard.
is not. And see, I think this is the mistake that Sarah doesn't make, because Sarah would realize that Jeremy and Michele are close enough that they'll talk. So you have to take a different path. And Ben and Nick aren't close enough that they'll talk. So Sarah can work that angle and be like, all right, well, I think I can get Ben to see the light that we'll go after Nick. I could not get Ben to move against Denise, at least not yet. So, I'll just sort of gently steer him towards Nick instead, rather than trying to plant some weird seed where he might go talk to Denise and that plan would blow up and Ben would turn against him. Again, it's just the contrast between great Survivor play and you tried.
Yeah, because what Sarah's doing, it has the benefit of, probably being true. That Jeremy isn't as much a danger to us as Nick and them is to you and us, because we're the biggest threats in the game. Everybody wants to get us, Ben. You are as dangerous as I. Whereas Ben's was just I'm going to make those two people hate each other. I guess to keep the coin away from Jeremy again. Real quick, it's weird that everybody knew about the coin. Jeremy didn't play it. Obviously, he told people that he had this thing. I'm guessing there was further conversation. And then they all know that Michele has it back. And it's kind of weird. And I think it just shows that Survivor stock a lot, and all the things that we think are, deeply held secrets, a lot of them probably aren't. I think we have that definite impression of Edge of Extinction where almost nothing is, and to the point where we see when Natalie's I thought about doing it by myself, but why not everybody come and see what I'm about to do? So anyway, that was just an aside, but yeah, it's Ben's attempt at trickery didn't really have anything of value for Michele or Jeremy. There wasn't anything for them to be oh man, you're so right. It was just I'm going to make them do this. Whereas, yeah, Sarah's, what she's saying has the veneer, and frankly, it might even be true that this would be of benefit to you, Ben.
Right. That's what I'm saying I think Sarah and Tony, obviously they're very self-interested. These plans that they come up with are to benefit them as individuals, but also when they think about talking to these other people, they make sure that they frame it in a way that shows the benefit to the person. Tony going up to Jeremy the other episode, and he's saying look, we're about to head to tribal council, but if it's you and me and Michele and we could flip, we can make this vote happen, but you have to do this. You got to do it right now. It's going to protect you. You need to do this, otherwise you're going to get voted out. A clear selling point. Like you said, with Ben, it was just I'm going to fire this shot in the dark and see what happens. Okay, but there's no real end game there.
Yeah, and you don't have any, equity with the people that you're doing it with. What value do they have to believe you? So Tony and Sarah had a choice. In fact, this whole episode was about their choices, as has, the past few. Choose Ben or choose Jeremy? Did they make the right choice in choosing to keep Ben?
I think they probably had to do either Jeremy or Michele first, just because that's the next closest thing to a solid 2, and you don't want a solid 2 that might oppose your solid 2 at some point. So I was in favor of it. I mean, the numbers are small enough now, and I got the argument for keeping Jeremy as long as possible, but I honestly probably would have taken out Michele first, but still, you do have to.
Yeah, but she has that token.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And of course, it worked when she flipped it, so it was a risk, but they split the votes. So at some point you're taking out either or. So.
Right. Yeah. But if you're splitting the votes to get rid of Michele, you're also moving against Jeremy, right? So I think the original conception to take out Nick was the right one, not just because I want them to take out Nick, although I gotta say, I wasn't buying it at all. When the episode started and talking about Nick's don't why even try to fool me? This is way too early for you to be talking about this. And then when they get the challenge, oh yeah, Nick's just gonna win this. That makes sense. It's a puzzle. I think he's won puzzles. But yeah, I do think that was one. Once the choice, though, was put to them, once they had to choose, yeah, absolutely. Jeremy might beat you, Ben might not. It's just that simple, and I think there was great arguments to keep Jeremy around a little longer, but, a little longer isn't always. Right. And once you have to make that decision, then you also try to find ways to, bring people in so they're not going to move with you on the next step, which apparently happened. So, it was the right call.
The interesting thing, too, about Nick winning immunity, like you said, Tony pointed out very early, hey, we got to move against Nick. Naturally, Nick is safe and the vote has to move. Second half of the episode, we got to take out Michele. Naturally, Michele is immune, and they have to the continuing thread of Tony calling the shot at the start of the episode and the target obviously moving later on in the episode has been a fun running thread these past few weeks.
Yeah, obviously, this time it wasn't because he changed his mind either way, but it is still the safest place to be in the game. So yeah, I believe that Tony and Sarah made the right choice, but they weren't the only people making a choice that night. Did Nick make the right choice? Should he have tried to save Jeremy, or was he right to not do? Keeping in mind, of course, that he goes home, a day later.
Right, exactly. You know what? I would say yes, he probably needed to get Tony and Sarah gone, because that plan that we saw last week with Denise and Michele was likely his best bet. I don't know that he has any group of three that he can get to the end with and win against. Even the Denise and Michele group, I don't really think he wins, but as the best...
But that's based on our perspective, watching a TV show that is edited based on knowing that this doesn't work out for him. Maybe if he had created more variable positions, we would feel better about his position in the game currently.
I'm only saying that with Tony and Sarah as a clear duo, although, we'll get to it later, but if they are a clear duo, you're really hoping to be that third seat, and it's probably easier to go with a looser group and be like, I can fit in here and we'll go by who needs me most and who I need most, rather than a group of two that I'm hoping to get myself weaseled into.
So the balance of Survivor always, but especially at this phase of the game, is when you're making your voting choices. And I believe Nick even mentions this in his confessional, or possibly a tribal council. It's that you're trying to balance, who you can beat at the end versus who you need to get there. And I think for this vote, and it makes sense, they're very close to that point. Nick was focused more on who do I beat in the end, and in his mind, Ben is a much better option than Jeremy. And I gotta say, that's probably accurate. That's a good read. I can't really criticize that. And I think, if I had to guess, that's probably where his decision making was going to be. Along with, it's a much less risky place to be. If I do what the bigger group is saying to do, I won't be caught. Now, he was safe anyway because he had the idol, but, the last little bit, it's kind of felt like Nick was a little risk averse, right?
And again, the contrast that with Tony, who gets an immunity necklace around his neck and gets unleashed.
So that's there, but I think, that failed. The other part is, but how are you getting there? And in that case, you should take rid of Ben. That gets somebody away from Tony and Sarah. Now, obviously, Nick might not know that Ben, Tony, and Sarah are three. It also gets Ben away from Denise. And it feels like everybody does know about Ben and Denise because nobody's coming to Denise with plans to vote out Ben. And that right there. So if you separate Denise, now maybe you, Jeremy, Michele have a chance to get her. And now it's 4 against 2. So, the mid, or the near term, focus would have been, let's get rid of Ben. But I think he was focusing too much on the long term.
Right. And again, with the benefit of the edit and watching the show and who's aligned with who, regardless, I don't think it matters. I don't think he had a very clear path to the end, although it was fun to watch Michele chew his ass out. And I honestly, correctly, because she said, what's your fucking path to the end? Which is the correct question to ask him. Like, okay, did you think through how you're going to get to the end? The very thing that you were talking about at Tribal Council.
Yeah, and I think he mostly stammered at that point, and that kind of bleeds into my thinking that he wasn't thinking about those steps. He was thinking about the end steps, along with probably kind of just a general feeling he's had for the past week that Jeremy's dangerous, Jeremy has to go. And I think that is something that it's really tough for people to get off of. Once they have that idea of this person is going to win if we let them get there, they stop thinking about what's happened since you had that thought. It's has he really been as dangerous since then, or has somebody else, gotten to that point? And I think, it was just there. It's okay, well, I could do this, or I could do this. This one gets rid of the person that everybody's saying is going to win the game. And I think that's where he thought of. And I don't know if he thought of, what's the next step? although part of it might have been, well, he might be thinking, I'm good with Tony. Like, Tony and I are good. I've given him tokens. He's been willing to give me things. That's how I move forward. Not knowing that, of course, Tony was trying to vote him out. Hey, real quick, I forgot to put this before, but I think a lot of people have been talking about Ben and, like, why is he so aligned with Tony and Sarah? Through this vote, through the next vote, it's like, why is he trying to get to the end with them? And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
I think he genuinely believes Tony's sales pitch that it's an all-winner season. We're the Lions. We're going to take all Lions to the end because we can't risk these less thans coming and taking our spot. And I think he genuinely believes that pitch. He also might think, I've won fire before. If I get to the end, I win immunity. I can dictate who's going to go to fire. Maybe I'll do the whole Chris Underwood thing. I'll take the shot at fire, win another fire challenge, and everybody be like, wow, Ben, what a move. You totally deserve this win. I think he just sees himself as the more controlling the game type and thinks like, yeah, I'm definitely in the class with Tony and Sarah.
Yeah, and I do think, it's a legitimate fear that if we leave too many people that are, less threatening around than someone like myself, who I believe to be threatening, will be a target. And, people are targeting him. He's not out of, people have been trying to go after him for 2 votes now. Somebody plays a disadvantage. So he's not like completely delusional in that belief that, he is somebody who would be targeted. Also, the only other time he played Survivor, he was targeted from,
Constantly.
2 votes past the merge on. And I think that's feeding into it. He played like half a season without an alliance. And I don't think he enjoyed that experience. Obviously, he enjoyed, winning. He enjoyed, thwarting them, and they had some fun in that. But I think it was like a lonely way for him to play. And people come back. Like we got some of that in the Tribal Council this week, that you hear all these things. And, if he was out there hearing any of it, it's a bunch of people saying how the show rigged it for him to win. Right. So like, I think he wants to show that, no, I can be in alliances. I can, be trusted and trust people. And that's why I think he's not really all that excited to turn on the alliance he has, even though it must be noted that I believe Tony blindsided him like 2 days ago at this point in time.
And yet 8 hours after that was like, come on, man, water under the bridge. Get over that.
It certainly is completely out, water under the bridge now. Like, there's no thought to moving on Tony. Now, there are other reasons for that. As I got into last week, at this vote, it would have been really hard because you need to split votes to really be confident, because everybody knows Tony has an idol. And that means that Ben has to trust Jeremy, which, as we see from this was not going to happen. But, even once Jeremy's gone and all that, I think Ben truly wants to be in that alliance with Tony and Sarah. And I think part of it is like, he's set to prove to people that he can do that sort of thing. He isn't just the guy who needs, idols and such to survive.
It was interesting too, when I heard Tony talking about like, Ben has the idol. So, if I'm ever going to blindside him, like, I got to take the opportunity when he feels totally safe and he thinks the target's not him. Like, this could be the time to do it. And, fan rooting interest me was like, yeah, take him out. But at the same time, I feel like that probably would have been a bad idea. Just because Ben does seem like he's willing to go to the end with you and keep being a loyal vote with you. So screw it. Why risk that?
Yeah, and so far that's borne out. So, yeah, no. I think like the Jeremy Ben decision was like there were pros and cons to each. I think the next decision is a little different. We'll get to that in a bit. Speaking of Jeremy, why the heck did he give that coin back? Like, he could still have been in the game if he hadn't, given that coin back.
I think he probably felt he was in good enough with Tony at that point that he's like, all right, here you go, Michele. You can have it back. I didn't even need it. Turns out I've got stronger foothold in the game than you do. You can have your little trinket. I'll be fine with my social skills and connections.
Here's the thing, because like the edit has certainly been pointing that, we get Tony confessionals and all that. And I think people have been there, but like Jeremy hasn't been wrong. to trust Tony necessarily.
Right.
Like, it's the only reason why he's still in this game. I mean, funnily enough, it was like a last-second decision to win, but that wasn't the case last week. You know, Tony was highly motivated to keep Jeremy throughout the entire process. And, like, for most of this one, like, if Nick doesn't win immunity, Tony is still motivated to keep Jeremy. So, like, Jeremy has reason to believe this about Tony. It's just, you know, it has its limits. Ultimately, people always give the thing back. Like the only person in Survivor that ever tried to, like, keep it and not give it, you know, you hold this for me, or we gotta share each half of the idol. Actually, I guess it's happened twice. One, Sari didn't want to give it back, and then, yeah.
Fucking Troyzan and his bunch of rules.
Yeah, was able to get it back, and then I believe Dr. Mike just threw the thing in the fire, like, oh, cool, I wanted to vote you out. But, like, for the most part, when somebody's like, oh, you can play this if you want to, or, you know, I think just into the social dynamics of the game, it would just feel too weird. Jeremy does want to work with Michele for, you know, whatever reason. It hasn't really provided a very successful strategy so far. She did just vote for him, but she did also give it to him. So, yeah, that's another, you know, a partnership you want to maintain, and, you know, being weird with the thing is like, I'm just going to hold it. We'll decide together how it gets played, but it's totally going to be played on me. Yeah, no, it makes sense, but it's just, he could still be there if he kept it and, you know, exhibited her flipping skills.
Yeah, I did enjoy him, and again, could have just been clever editing, but the faces he's making as she's deciding, like, are you playing it for yourself? He's like, like, over here in the sky. Yeah.
She made the right call, though.
Of course, right? Yes. I mean,
it can't even suggest anything else.
Very fun to drag Michele when she plays poorly. That was definitely not the wrong choice.
Yeah, no, I mean, I talked about it last week that she could go home by trying to save Jeremy with the coin, which is what I was
so close.
But yeah, closer than it seemed like it should have been. Like, yeah, I think some of that is just like the way that she talks. Like when she said, I think so, is probably like, I don't know, years of being taught as a woman she's not allowed to, like, just be declarative with her own, you know, wants and, you know, opinions. Because, like, she says yes, and then I think so. And it's like, well, why are you hedging? I don't get it. The answer is yes. I believe you went up there with yes, but, you know, even in that moment, she expresses doubt. And I wonder if that's specific to her or, you know, the fact that, you know, society sucks for women.
And I mean, it could have been just, you know, Probst asked the obvious question, are you playing this for you? And maybe she wasn't, like, thinking, wait, I walked up here with it. I'm clearly playing it for me. Maybe she hadn't thought through, like, oh, I need to say, I'm going to play this coin for myself. And so he naturally asks, and she's like, oh, wait, why should I not be? Like, moment of hesitation. Like, now I got to think about it.
Yeah, and it's a very nervous situation, as we saw when she's doing it. The thing is, it's like, as soon as she, like, confirms that it's for herself, it's like, okay, well, now she's just immune. Like, it didn't matter at that point whether it was heads or tails. I knew, like, the drama of the moment does not matter. You know, this is for trivia purposes only. But the second that she decides to play it for herself other than Jeremy, that means Jeremy's going home. Because, obviously, I have the benefit and she does not. So, no, that was the right call. I think, yeah, she did very well in calling Nick out. Less well in trying to manipulate Sarah.
Yeah, she tried.
I mean, yeah, and that's good. Like try things. I always encourage courage.
Yes, of course. And you know what? And she even said, I am playing with my back against the wall. I just have to throw things, throw Hail Marys, see if any of them land. And you know what? Take the shot. It didn't work. It was, you know, selling Sarah on not being able to beat Tony is honestly not that bad of a pitch. I don't think she was great at making it. You know, you have to read your target a little bit better than that. But at the same time, like, yeah, you should probably try to put the seed in her head. Like, yeah, you want to take Tony to the end? Because I've been hearing a lot of people saying how great Tony is, and not a lot of people talking you up. So, you sure?
Yeah, and look, there are ways to do this that I think would, you know, at least feel like a stronger attempt, whether it be successful or not. My problem is the way she does it, and that it, you know, she does it very snotty way, because the whole time she's very put off by the fact that, you know, for the, I don't know, 100th time this game, she was voting the wrong way and didn't know what she was going on, and clearly has no alliances, and this is the fault of them, not she. Even though she's twice tried to throw her vote to other people to buy into her way into alliances that never happened. But it was more like, she was acting like Sarah had never considered this possibility and that she's like kind of dumb for it. As opposed to like, really trying to talk about it. It was like this snotty thing, which even if true, and I'm not convinced it is not the way, like somebody should be like, fuck you. How about that? They're not going to be like responding, oh, you're so right. I hadn't thought about it that way. Thank you, bold truth teller, for helping me out. No, and it's like the same bullshit that like Sheehan tried in All Stars. And it's just like the snotty thing. Like people would be like, man, I don't even care if it's in my best interest. Fuck you.
Right. It's, again, the contrast between like how Sarah plays and how Michele handled it here. Like, you have to know how you can talk to people and what will work with them. We saw Sarah like chewing Tony's ass out an episode ago, but she knows that that's how she can talk to Tony. That's how they can communicate. Like Michele talking almost condescendingly to Sarah, that's not your sales pitch. I mean, you're making the right argument. You're making it the wrong way. Like you do want to plant that seed like, man, it might be tough for you against Tony. Definitely be better for you against me. But, there's ways you can deliver that argument with more finesse, and she definitely
Yeah, and I wonder
if
like playing to ego might have been the way. It's like, you have a plan to take out Tony, right? Like, if you need help with that, I am here. But like to assume that she doesn't, like she hasn't considered the possibilities and like weighed, how easy will it be, or how possible will it be to beat Tony versus if I take out Tony, where does that put me vis-a-vis getting to the end in the first place? I feel like she's pretty good at this stuff. And also, like, Sarah isn't somebody who is uncomfortable in the position of being, but underestimated. Michele clearly is somebody who is uncomfortable in that position, right?
Well, see, and I was going to say that, she could have tried some sort of angle like, Sarah, it's really tough when you have to sit next to two guys at the end. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, that pitch would not work on Sarah because she has overcome those odds before. I mean, in most cases, it would make sense to be like, hey, it sucks because if we go to the end with someone like Tony's going to get all this credit, whereas, you've played this masterful game. Are people going to recognize that and give you the credit you deserve? History suggested, at least in Sarah's case, and that's the only case Sarah's going to care about. Yes, they might.
It's not out of the question that somebody might have said similar things to her about taking Brad Culpepper to the end. Are you really going to go deep with Suri? And it's like, no, I'm probably not. I'm weighing my options because I, the superior player in this discussion, have them. You, person everybody doesn't want to work with, do not. And I don't like your tone. So I didn't think that went well. Other people were like, yes, Queen, you're telling it like it is. It's like, man, and honestly, I'm just at the point, like, if I'm seeing a conversation between Sarah Lucina and Michele Fitzgerald, I'm probably going to assume Sarah Lucina knows what she's doing in that combo. And what happens? Hey. Really, what happens? Does Michele buy herself anything in the game there? Like, even if she's telling the truth, even if we get to the end of this game and Tony, like, just wipes the floor with Sarah, that as a move, all it did was Sarah went back to everybody else. It's like, get a load of this. Yeah, like, it didn't crack any, find any cracks. It didn't open any doors. She is only still in this game because she won immunity. Which, hey, Michele won immunity. That's another good thing for her. Right? Another good thing for this episode for her.
Right. I mean, she definitely needed it, and she got it after a hilariously bad challenge performance earlier on. She came through and she got it. When
so inspiring.
Good for her.
So inspiring. The way she was able to overcome her inability to, roll the ball and catch it.
It was pretty funny.
It was so great. I say, in my mind, it was like when the ball bounced off her face before she caught it. It was so much more epic. But then I watched it again. It's like, just a little off the face and then off the hands. But it's like, yeah, look at them. They are starving. They're hungry. It's tense. Like, get it. But at the same time, it's like we've seen people nearly drown in this game and all this, and now we're like trying to like this wasn't that difficult a portion of it, and she still couldn't do it. Now, I don't mind that she got emotional about it. Man, that's a tough, stressful situation. Not just that, inability to do that portion of the challenge, but being there at all. So, if she, feels like that, and she wasn't calling attention to it, but the way that they try to celebrate like this triumphant return and then she's able to win the next challenge, it's like, man, she just sucked at one thing and didn't suck at another thing. It's really not that difficult. Frankly, when the second challenge rolls around, not just because editing tells me, it's like, I bet Michelle's not going home. I just looked at it and it's like, I feel like she won something like this her first season. I think she's going to win this one.
Yeah, and I am the person that stays consistent on this. I don't give a shit about immunity challenges. Like, good for you. You won it. You needed it. That's important. I don't know that it affects my judgment of Michele or any other player all that much.
Survivor Twitter rarely shows its hypocrisy as much as they do with challenges. So, someone like Michele wins a challenge and they're all like, yes, slay queen.
Resume.
Oh my God, you guys were doubting her and now look. Na. Meanwhile, somebody like Devins will win 4 in a row and you're like, this is bullshit. He sucks. If you need to win a challenge, you suck. And then, we get another...
Not managing your threat level, when you have to win challenges.
Michele clearly didn't manage her threat level, although I still feel like she did. This wasn't about threats. It's like, let's just get her out of here. It's ridiculous. And this happened in, Ben's first season, that near the end, all people could brag about for their beloved Chrissy was that she won a lot of challenges. Because, clearly she was rejected in every other phase that they were trying to pretend she was good at. Obviously, they could whine about the game completely being rigged with this brand new fire thing thrown at them, which, it was bullshit that the fire thing was thrown at them. But then suddenly we're like, we're talking challenges now? Is that what we're really doing? We're sitting here saying the person who won the most challenges deserves to win Survivor? Is that what's happening on Twitter? Because I don't feel like that's ever happened in other seasons. I don't think people have been like, Ozzy's the real winner of Survivor always. Nobody was like, Sarah shouldn't have beat Brad Culpepper. So no, I love the hypocrisy because we're pretty consistent. Now I'm ones who will say, hey, challenges are valid. I'm not saying that you aren't, right?
Yep.
When people complain about Devins, winning challenges or whatever, I'd be like, I'm sorry that this thing that's always been a part of the game, that always gets a segment on TV, matters sometimes, but sometimes it does. But I don't pretend like it's this big deal. My favorite players aren't the challenge piece, but she wins one, and all of a sudden we're like, challenge!
Queen!
Even though the episode ends as, the first half of it ended, as last week's ended, with her once again voting in the minority.
Swing and a miss. One more time. And another interesting thing is, Michele, at least as far as we know, used to work as a bartender. And so you would think, she would know, don't adopt the, I'm going to talk to your manager voice while trying to pitch Sarah on your plan. You would think, having worked in that position, she would know how to schmooze people a little better, say what they want to hear. I think she also said she did travel agent
that's what she does
or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, sure. It feels like you have some sort of experience in sales and social jobs. You might be a little bit better at delivering that message. I was unimpressed.
Yeah, and I bet mostly she is. I hear that she is the nicest person in the history of Survivor.
Oh, you meet her in person?
Oh, you totally get it.
She drips the charm.
Yeah, most people are standoffish and rude at fan events, but not Michele Fitzgerald.
When I met Stephen Fishback, he punched me in the face.
They mostly, when attending these things that are for fans that they could later in life bilk for 30-second conversations that they film for you. Most of them are like, screw this. I don't want to talk to fans, but not Michele Fitzgerald. You meet her, you get it. No, look, all it shows is, she was on tilt, man. It's tough. It's a tough spot to be in. And we've seen many a player in the past be that person, the last one there. All you have left is, winning challenges or playing idols. And when they are able to, thwart people, it's got to feel damn good. I have no issue with her talking trash to us. It's a bad look when she's whining about it in front of everybody. But hey, I get it, man. Like that's the way she feels in that moment. When also, when we're on the topic of hypocrisy, I feel like a lot of people were like, yes, Queen, are the first people to be like, oh, they didn't need to be like that. Oh, I can't stand that guy for like rubbing it in people's faces. And it's like, where's the consistency? Me, I like arrogance in all its forms. Other people seem to only care when it comes packaged in the way that they like, of the people that they like. And look, another thing is like, just be like fans. I don't care. Be biased. Be like, yeah, I hate it when people I don't like does this, but I'm gonna love it when somebody I do like it. But that's not like, they don't admit that it's just like they're biased. They like to like couch it in these, arguments of like, oh no, this is what good gameplay. I like good gameplay, or, this is about my, social reading of, world and stuff. Like, nah, man, you're hypocrites like the rest of us.
I think it's probably useful if you've had the experience of like watching sports and having a favorite team and having a like a dirty player on your favorite team, or at least some questionable player where you're like, fucking, I hate this guy, but I'm gonna defend him because he's on my team. Yeah, that's right. He wears the right uniform, so he's actually not a piece of shit.
I hated that guy, and then he changed his laundry. Oh God, one of the worst experiences of my life was trying to defend like late prime Dwight Howard for a year. I fucking hated it. And actually even worse was like having to like watch my organization debase themselves to beg him to stay, knowing like they kind of have to do this. You don't want to lose an asset for nothing. He's clearly the best player on our team now that Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles. But I don't think I really want him. And then as soon as he's gone, it's like, I hate that guy always.
Oh, thank God. He sucks.
Yeah, no, and maybe some of it is like that, people just don't know these competitive outlets. Because another thing that happens is like when my favorite sports team loses, I don't like assume that like the league that employs them is rigging it against them, or, unable to do their job in the presentation of their loss. And look, some sports fans are. I mean, certainly a lot of Toronto Raptors fans are.
I was going to say, you're a Laker fan, not a Sacramento Kings fan.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's part of it, right? Like, if I, as an overdog rooter, I'm like, hey, man, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like, it's like, hey, I'm glad you guys are helping with your spunky underdogs, but, count the rings. But yeah, no, it's just like, be biased or don't be biased, but don't pretend you're better than us when, suddenly you're being like, she won a challenge. Cool. Your fave won a challenge. It's fun when Tony won a challenge for the first time. We lost our minds.
It was unreal.
Yeah, we didn't suddenly like act like this was like proof of all the haters being wrong of his superiority.
I laughed about it. I laughed when Tony got a slide puzzle in this challenge. I was like, oh, please. Come on, a slide puzzle, and Tony, I just need to see the recreation of Kagayan just randomly throwing around wood blocks as fast as he can.
No, and he was mildly competent. Like, it looked like he had some pieces, but yeah, he wasn't going to win. Hey, speaking of Tony, how on earth...
Let's always speak of Tony,
it's weird that we've actually taken this long not doing it. Good on us.
Almost disappointed in us.
How on earth does Tony still have this level of control on the game where every minority group that looking to shake things up eventually finds their way to asking him to do it?
It is unreal. Like, I mean, maybe it's just not obvious to them while playing that Tony and Sarah are such a...
But it is, though? Like, we've seen people talk about it, right?
It's gotta be, right?
Like, we've seen more than just Kim mention it. And Tony himself mentioned, like, I gotta talk to Sarah. So, like, I don't think they're, like, maybe they don't know how close, but they are not unaware that there is a bond there.
I mean, at the last tribal council, Tony's like, Sarah, do you want me to play this idol for you? You should know, right? Like, that's a pretty visible power couple. Like, there's no romance like a Romber thing. There's not, like, some unlikely pairing like Denise and Malcolm. They're just way the fuck out in the open. And people are just cool with this.
Yeah, now look, to everybody's credit, they never tried to get him to move on Sarah, and Michele only half-heartedly tried. In part, maybe because Sarah was the one who came up and talked to her. But yeah, no, he has, like, everybody is talking to him. Real quick on Tony and Sarah. At the beginning of the season, we were so pumped for the potential of a Parvati-Rob team up. Which we did get, right? But obviously, like, it wasn't able to amount to a lot because players rightfully recognized that, we can't let them have too much power. But it was like, oh man, It's exciting. Like, we can have two of the very best players teaming up, using their strengths and, together. And we got that with Tony and Sarah. That's like, Tony and Sarah are the Rob and Parvati we were hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, the modern Rob and Parvati, slightly different skills.
Absolutely different skills on both accounts, but,
Right. And yet, both fucking dominant players.
But I think why Tony is the one people approach is, and this probably shows another reason why Tony is able to succeed in the seasons that he has been, is, he's somebody who is willing to entertain the idea of flipping.
Yes. That's all it is Tony will always hear you out for your plan.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Sandra, right? Like, that's the strength of the anybody but me plan, is like, if you can put something together, you can get Sandra on board as long as you can explain to her why it's of her value for her vote. She's not locked into a certain path once her key allies are taken out. Because pretty on, she seems pretty locked in on things. That seems to be what's happened. And that's the same thing with Tony. It's like, well, who will flip? Well, Ben is headstrong. He's not going to do it. Sarah, I don't know. She's a little close to the vest. Denise, well, she has this thing with Ben. But Tony, I bet if we can make it worth his while, Tony will do it. And, like, frankly, I don't even know if they're giving the full respect. It might be like, Tony's crazy enough. We can get him to do anything.
It could be. But that's the thing is I think that, like, outward appearance of, like, crazy, chaotic behavior leads you to think, like, oh, man, Tony might do this. Even if it's against his best interest, maybe he'll go for it. I'll approach him with this plan.
And as a result, and obviously there are, like, a bunch of plans we never see, but for the past month, viewing wise, Tony has been, abreast of all of the major plans that we are abreast of as viewers. He is being told, this plan, or how about this plan? Some of it is because, he himself is the one switching it. But some of it's because, Ben tells him about Kim's plan to take out him. Like, he is being told or approached with all of, the options that, at least we get as viewers. Obviously, there's, myriad of options that never go anywhere that we don't see. But, and I think that's a key to his, level of control over the game is nobody's trying to do something without him because he feels like somebody you can do something with. And, of course, the other reason is he'll climb up a tree and listen to you.
You got that valuable spy nest intel this week. Finally, the spy nest paid off after that seed was planted like 2 weeks ago in the preview. And it finally came.
Apologies to who first said it in comments. I can't remember who it was, but like, you didn't build that, Tony, like that's a tree.
It's a fucking tree.
I built the spy nest. It's going to totally pay off. No, you climbed a tree. I mean, good on you.
Yes.
Please, great on you. But, you didn't build nothing. Kind of like, Rob in his second try. Yeah, man, it worked out. But he gets that intel that Denise is trying to turn people against him, which now gives him a choice. Does he, vote out Denise, the person that's targeting you? Long-held survivor theory. If you hear that somebody's coming after you, you should get rid of them. Or was he right to take out Nick instead? And keeping in mind, of course, all we want him to do is take out Nick and not Denise.
Right, exactly. Rooting interest-wise, he was correct.
But even strategically, was he correct?
It's an interesting contrast because we talked about, Rob and Parvati versus Tony and Sarah. Like, Rob, I believe, not that Rob's ever sitting in a fucking tree, but if Rob were sitting in a fucking tree and got this intel, I feel like Rob immediately moves against that person. Tony gives a confessional, like, oh no, Denise said this, I've got to get her out of here. And yet, I mean, I think he knows he needs to say that, but probably had a talk with Sarah, and I'm assuming had the talk with Sarah, or just came to the realization himself that, like, okay, if Denise legitimately thinks that she just made a plan to take your spot in the final three, she's probably a loyal number 4, which might be really fucking useful. So let's just keep her around.
No, Sarah should be telling Denise, yes, you're in my final 3. because then she won't do something at 5. Another thing, like, I was begging through the television, no, Tony, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And again, not just because I love Denise, can't stand Nick. It's more that would have been a disaster for Sarah and Tony. Because you take out Denise at this point, now Nick and Michele are still in the game, but most importantly, a very pissed off Ben is still in the game. And now that's 3 to your 2. They could probably easily pick up the 4th, just with hey, we're not going to vote for you, Edge of Extinction Returnee. Want to take out one of these, prime movers of the game? Hell yeah! No, it would have been I think it would have sunk him. So I was like, no, don't do it, don't do it. And of course he didn't do it because Tony knows what he's doing.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm gonna give Sarah credit, even though we never saw any indication that she deserved it. But I feel like most of their moves, with the exception of the ones where we specifically saw Tony not involving Sarah, I think most of the time they're working pretty tightly.
Yeah, including the way to work Ben to try to keep Jeremy. I believe that was a tandem move. And yeah, man, who knew? Having partnerships can work out for people. I know it's like some people like to present the needed this partner to do portions of the game as like a weakness in somebody. It's like, no, that's Survivor. You work with people. You use people and their strengths to benefit yourself. It's not actually, a fault. If you know that you have this asset, then you should deploy it. Yeah, we should talk about Denise, because I feel like we don't a lot. Because what's more to say other than, we love you?
Yeah, it was disappointing to see, like, Denise's faked rolling over act. Like, I get it back at the camp, but then she also did it at tribal council in front of the jury. I wasn't a big fan of that. Like, that's not a good look. I get, you're still trying to sell the lie, but I don't know that if you're Denise, you want to try to make yourself look weak to the jury that's all sitting there. Like, it's a minor quibble. It probably doesn't mean much. But I didn't like it.
I mean, we did get the scene of, like, Adam being like, this is a bit, right? And, Sophie being like, no. And I think it, like, reinforces probably, like, what they saw last time with her being like, we're done. That's it. And I think there might be an impression, and frankly, it might be accurate, that, like, this just ain't for Denise. Like, the way this season is going, this isn't, like, her type of game. But I also did find, like, her explanation, and, painting the words, which she has now got it tatted up on herself. Sadly, she didn't do, like, the knuckle ones, but I can't remember the words. Maybe, it was too many letters. But she got it on her wrists. I did appreciate, like, because I think there's a lot of wisdom to what she's saying, and that, you need to be able to be okay with letting go of that which you can't control. And I think this is, practice Denise as somebody who, she's not a robot. She feels things. She blew up at Abby Maria. She enjoyed being angry at her at points, but then dialed it back. It's like, oh, this isn't me. So yeah, she blew up a bit at Tribal Council in a very frustrating situation. Frustration that was voicing that of all the fans who hate the whispering too. But I found it a really interesting glimpse. Hey, real quick, before you can respond to that, one thing I noticed with these tribals, no whispering, which I think is better. But then it just reminded me of, like, how much people hate, like, the questions that, Probst asks, because he hasn't done it in weeks. And it's like, oh, it's this mixed bag. I think people are still right to say it's better that the castaways, that's not what they are anymore. Do we call them that? Anyway. The survivors are talking, in ways that we, the audience, can engage with. But it is a reminder that when they're not getting up and doing stuff, then we have Probst being like, so what is it like to feel things outside of this game?
I mean, I did actually see some praise on Twitter and in our comments for the fact that we got to hear people talking about, like, the toll that the game takes on them mentally. Not just physically, I feel like physically is ground that's well covered. But, people saying, like, I lost a level of trust and, it fucked me up. Michele saying she couldn't take a fucking Uber, really right on that same level as not trusting your wife. But yeah, it was, at least as far as the Jeff Probst show goes, I think it went over better than a lot of his segments.
No, I think it was a worthy discussion. I think it is an example of why we should be having discussions. It's just also a reminder, like, he is good at getting things out of people, but his phrasing is often weird and awkward.
Yes, it is.
Now, I say that as somebody who recognizes that I have no business interviewing people, and when I will have like prepared questions. He doesn't get to prepare too many things. He obviously has some, but it has to be a give and take, and I hate that. But luckily, the people probably just one person really that we'll interview, we don't really need to ask too many things of.
Nope.
But yeah, what did you think of like Denise's personal moment?
It was fine. It was nice to see some personal content from Denise, and she is right. Like, especially as a therapist, it's probably good for her to show, like, hey, I can practice what I preach. I need to understand that, like, some things in my life need to just be let go. Like, I cannot control all things that happen to me. Like, it was good, like, giving therapy to both herself and the audience.
Yeah, and like you, I didn't love her, continuing to lie, in part because I didn't necessarily see the value. But, I guess we should always be cognizant of the fact that you have to worry about idols and advantages at all times. So, that could be the one. Sure. I do 100% love her idea to buy rice, and I'm sitting here asking myself, why did Sarah and Michele not buy things with their now worthless tokens?
I mean, we don't know for sure that they didn't. I feel like they probably needed more than just Denise's tokens to buy the rice, but I could be wrong.
I feel like 6. I don't
menu.
remember either, but I feel like 6 probably gets you there. But what do I know?
It's possible. I just remember a tarp being really expensive and being like, wow, that's a lot for a tarp.
Yeah, a tarp was basically everybody on the tribe has to, kick in. I feel like, again, I don't know, but it would be weird that, we didn't see, I'm willing to spend all my tokens if so-and-so would be, because it would have just been an easy, like, it would have been the way she would have said it, right? Because otherwise she can't say, I'm going to buy this, even though I don't have enough money for it. And yeah, we don't know that they didn't, and maybe they absolutely did, but there's no story in that. There is a story in Denise spending that money. But it's like, I hope the rest of you, like, write a letter to the Edge, something. Just like, that money is worthless for you now.
Oh, I forgot they could write the letters to the Edge.
Mentioned it, and I was like, oh, right, that was so hilarious. Because, not a lot of rewards to steal. So, now's the time we talk about that other place that's in the game. It turns out that being on Edge of Extinction longer is more beneficial than just arriving and not really knowing the place. Weird, huh?
It is strange how that worked out. But holy shit, though, like, regardless of how long she's been there eating like these little scraps of food, Natalie is a fucking beast. Like, I've gone for runs after like not eating breakfast and been like, this sucks. Natalie has been for a month straight eating jack shit and is like, well, after my morning 5K here, I'm going to charge on up the hill and get to the Iron Throne and grab this advantage. Like, fucking bravo.
Yeah.
Again, this is not what I watched the show for, but still, bravo.
We don't watch the show for it, but at the same time, we wouldn't be interested in the show if there was no physical element, because it would be boring people sitting around. Like, I think there is a TV show about that we don't watch. And moreover, right. It's impressive to see people do impressive shit. And wow, Network on Twitter from The Ringer was like, she's like LeBron James. Everybody else there is like nearly dying, and Michele is still just beasting things.
You mean Natalie? But yes.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm just so used to talking about Michele the Beast.
Michele is a dominant force. I get why you would confuse her with LeBron James, but she is actually the Michael Jordan.
God damn it. I believe it was Mike Hirsch who, I think, solved that puzzle of, they're probably talking about Birmingham Barons Michael Jordan. Can her the curveball. It is insane. And then 14 tokens, which I gotta say, I think that means she spent something, because she got the 6 from Tony. She got the 8 from Nick. We didn't even talk about that, and we don't need to. But she also got 2 for smoking the running to get coconuts challenge, which didn't even, at some point, either she spent those right away, or, she's amassed 16 tokens since the merge. My God.
Yeah, and we don't know how many. Remember the deal with her and I think it was her and Parv found the thing that they sold to Michele.
I believe it was to Tony.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Regardless, is she potentially got a cut of those too? Like, we saw her eating peanut butter with Tyson. It could have been her peanut butter. It could have been Tyson's. Who fucking knows? But yeah, she, eventually was living the life out there.
She did it. Then Parvati also spent some because Parvati had 2 that she also got from the running a coat in the challenge. So anyway, either way, yeah. Michelle's will, drive, and physical, abilities is also impressive, but it also just shows, she herself is like, I know every inch of this island, I've been here forever, and yeah, it's weird that, failing earlier is better, and just, opportunity-wise, she has had more time to amass these tokens, and now, in the final thing that throws you at the game, the final 6, she has 3 advantages. She had to just go ahead and buy somebody else an idol because she couldn't. I was worried that she was going to have 2 idols, to tell you the truth. And it's just like, man, I don't want anyone there to win. And it's like, wow, that is crazy how much of an advantage she has through her own abilities, yes, but also through the fact that, she was there a long time.
Still funny that you called her Michele a second time, but yes.
I'm editing that one.
Really got Michele on the brain. You think of dominant player and you think of Michele. I get it.
She is living rent-free in my head. I am so owned.
So, yeah, she's going into that challenge, which apparently is next week because fucking didn't happen in the last 10 minutes of the episode, but she's going into there loaded up. And then also, having bought Tyson the immunity idol, if she gets back in the game and, Tyson doesn't, Tyson is still going to be like, yeah, I'm rooting for Natalie now. She really looked out for me. Like, what a bro. So, she's essentially buying favors.
Now, I want, they're one of the bonus scenes. I haven't gone through them at all. Brad does an awesome feature on our site, sharing, pretty much all of them at this point, because I feel like there's only 3 per episode now. I want stop motion or where they take a long period of time and condense it into a short period of time. It's not stop motion. It's a different term.
Montage.
No, but when they show seconds at a time and then smash them all together and then it goes fast.
Oh, time lapse.
Time lapse of her just going to town on that jar because it was full when she starts. And then Tyson's kind of scraping out the bottom in their conversation. I hope that she just ate a whole vat of peanut butter in an hour. And that's her final challenge win.
I hope she didn't have to open her mouth for a few hours after that because my God, you would be dead.
Oh, it would be horrible if the reason why she doesn't win the challenge, if indeed she does not, is because she's dehydrated from the fact that she can no longer produce saliva.
She can't open her mouth anymore. Can't breathe.
So since next week is going to start with that challenge, presumably it might also start with the 10 minutes we already saw. Any hopes for how that will work out? Who are you hoping to come back?
I'm trying not to pin my hopes on any one player, but partly because there's a bunch of people that I like, but also partly because I don't necessarily want the person coming back to win. The only one I think that I'd be semi-okay with is Kim, just because she lasted long enough. She went out going after Tony. She's a freaking all-timer regardless. But at the same time, it would be kind of funny if Boston Rob comes back and then immediately gets voted out because, everybody's like, well, Boston Rob, you would have done the same yourself. So you get it, right?
Except he has an idol, so that wouldn't happen.
He has an idol, though, so which we now know he can use. Probst had been wrong about that when he was first interviewed and said, oh, yeah, those idols they bought the first time, they can't use them when they come back in the game. Turns out, oops, just kidding, he forgot.
Seems weird that if Boston Rob comes back, the player who Jeff Probst loves more than the TV show itself, apparently, if you trust some people's opinion, that he comes back and plays an idol, and Jeff forgot that ever happened.
Maybe he just thought it was the one that Rob finds in his bag when he gets back into the game. He just got confused as to which one it was, because Rob gets 3 or 4 once he comes back.
That would make sense. He is immune from fire making. Although I actually saw a video on his Instagram where he was teaching his young daughter to do fire making, and he started that thing in 30 seconds. So I don't think he would need immunity from that. So here's what I'm hoping. I hope that neither Natalie, Tyson, or Rob win the challenge, because I don't want the person from Edge of Extinction, no matter who they are, to win this season. I want them gone as early as possible. I don't want them immune from any votes. I don't want to sit there for an hour worrying that this really awesome season is going to be, won by, spoiler alert, Brand the Builder or whatever. No, he wasn't the builder, but whatever his name was. The story maker, whatever. Just somebody just coming at the end to win after all we've gotten since the merge. Nah. So my hope is that none of those three win. Instead, I think Jeremy would be, a good pick for me for what I want, because I don't want them to be immune. I want them voted out right away. I need them to also to be threatening enough to be voted out right away. If an Adam or Danny, and let's face it, Adam and Danny are not coming back. But if somebody less threatening came back, then people might be like, no, this is the time to get Tony.
Yeah, let him skate.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Because, they're not a threat.
And the other nice part about Jeremy is, he has a story that's still active, right? The rivalry with Ben is still there. The fallout with Tony. We don't need to reset anything within the story that I've been getting to accommodate this interloper. It'll just be oh, yeah, he's back again, just like he was here last week, and then he's gone. So that's what I want. I want Jeremy to return. What else do you want for the finale?
Shit, do I even risk putting it out there in the universe? I guess I can safely say that I would like to see Tony win this, because I know it's doomed, because I get it. You put him in the 0% club, and we all know that historically, anybody that you put in the 0% club is doomed to failure. So, I know I'm hoping against hope. But I would love to see.
Percentage-wise, it doesn't doing too badly, but that's because most people who play the game lose. So I have a very detailed hopes and dreams for the finale. So including somebody threatening enough to be voted out, but not winning and not having an idol. So Jeremy is a good candidate. Harvey would be a good candidate. At Final 6, I want Tony, Sarah, Ben, and Denise to split the votes against Michele and the Edge of Extinction returnee, with the Edge of Extinction returnee going. I also want Ben to burn his idol here, but Tony not to burn his idol. That's all very important. At Final 5, I want Sarah to win immunity, which would be her first, actually. And then Tony will be safe with his idol. So again, nobody can move on those two. This is what's important to me. And it gives them the freedom to blindside Ben.
Ooh.
Yeah. And he and Denise can vote for Michele, but I'm sure they could get Michele on board with voting for somebody that's not her. And they want to get rid of Ben at this point because they're afraid of him beating them at firemaking, as Nick pointed out.
So very interesting that Michele will be looped into a vote for the first time at Final 5. Good for her in your scenario.
At 4, I want Tony to win immunity because I don't want to mess around here. And I won't want him to mess around with I gotta go up again. No, take yourself to the end. You're there, and take Michele with you. So that's what I want to happen at Final 4. And then I want Sarah to beat Denise at Fire.
Of course.
Because, man, a final tribal council with Tony versus Sarah, with Michele just getting the Troyzan treatment. That would be amazing. We would not know who has won this season until Jeff reveals it. And that's exciting. It barely ever happens. Obviously it happened in not David vs. Goliath, Ghost Island. But I didn't care. Right?
Right.
And it was not that I disliked Dom or Wendell. It was they're the same. Either one of them. I have no preference between these two. Whereas Tony and Sarah would be a really exciting, interesting battle, but I still have a very huge rooting interest in the two of them, is that Tony. So it would just be so exciting.
And it would be contrasting styles, and you'd get to see okay, what does this jury of former winners think is the better form of play? What game do they think is more something that you should strive for? Is it Tony's seemingly more overt, aggressive game, or is it Sarah's where you have social contact with everybody, and you can move into whatever alliances you need to.
Yeah, no, I think it would bring value to that final tribal council, like to the entire season, to that entire episode. And like, here's another thing we got going on that I think we should really point out, because this is also really rare. You and I, many of the people in our audience, are rooting for someone heading into the final who has a legit chance to win. When's the last time that happened? Is it Kagyan? Probably Cambodia. We were also like, but even Cambodia's like, I was more interested in Kelly Wentworth winning than Jeremy, even though it felt very much like Jeremy was going to win, and I was cool with that.
Yes.
But it wasn't like I was like, yeah, Jeremy's going to win. It was like, oh, cool. We've had a good season. I want to watch more things. Fun finale. But like, and then anybody else I was rooting for, I was like, they don't have a real chance, like. Or there was somebody's like, well, like, I'd like Devin to win, but I don't really care that much if he does. But this, man, like, all week I could be like, oh, man, I think Tony could really do it. It's not for sure. And the edge of extinction thing is really scary. But yes. I'm invested, and it's exciting.
It is. And, yeah, you might be right, because, I mean, there's been other seasons where we had rooting interests prior to the finale that didn't make it to the finale, so we're not even, we don't have the same strong rooting interests at Final Tribal Council. You might be right. It might be Kakayan was the last time we were this
like
stoked.
Millennials versus Gen X. Like, Jay was still around, but it felt like it was a really long shot. Like, he had a chance, but it's like, I don't think it's really going to happen. And it was like, I'm cool with David winning, but he's not my fave. And then of course neither of that happened. Like, I was excited for Rick Devens winning, but not excited enough because the internet told me I wasn't allowed to be. No, like this, man, just, it's the NBA Finals, Game 7, and, like, your team is in it. Like, oh, my God, Team TV, let's do this.
And honestly, like, Tony versus Sarah feels like a legit end to a season that should be this, like, monumental. You know what I mean? Like, it's not we'll pick which of those three was fine. It's, okay, which of these two fucking titans is more deserving of a win from us.
And it also, because of Sarah's high level of gameplay, it doesn't feel like, well, we know it's going to be Tony. So it's like we're just waiting. This is like Game 4 of a 3-0 sweep. This is, Warriors versus the last few Cavaliers teams, not the ones that, almost beat them and did. It's like, no, this is real in doubt. I'm nervous. And obviously, of course, Age of Extinction returning. Because I said this before, I need to reiterate it now. 100% that jury might vote for that person. They will not vote for this person because they won't respect the journey. Nah, man, they're going to respect the jury. They might not vote for that person if that person is like Nick, or if it's like, or if they're against Tony, maybe, but no, they're not going to reject out of hand. Though there's this person who succeeded and through the suffering that I myself suffered through. Nah, man, that's not Survivor to me. No, that's not how it works.
It would be just fucking wrong to me for like, Natalie, the first boot of the season, like, sure, probes might be like, wow, what a story. Natalie lasted on Edge of Extinction for a month plus and came back and won the game. Like, okay, but that doesn't feel like the ending that I want for a season of all winners, right? You know what I mean? Like, all winners, we wanted to see these legendary players. And I like Natalie, but seeing legendary players go head to head, like, someone essentially sat on the sidelines playing a different game for a month and then coming back and winning would be like, this just seemed like a waste of a wildly potential filled season.
Yeah, and like competitively, it doesn't feel right. Like you said, maybe for Kim. For me, it's like, it feels less right for the people, or maybe not right in different ways for the people who removed post-merge. Because it's like, you guys had your shot and lost. And I feel like every one of them, other than potentially Wendell, had a shot. This game took turns and stuff. And Kim had her shot. She took it and failed. I feel like she earned her, whereas at least the pre-merge people, a lot of it was swap or, bad draw in Natalie's case even. But for me, it's like, well, you had your chance at the first challenge. Now, I don't want any of you to win. And primarily, it's narratively, it's like, I haven't invested my time of all the twists and turns that, Tony's been going through and all of this for somebody who wasn't involved in that to be like, hey, actually, it's me.
It would just, be bizarre narratively. Because we talked about this with the Edge of Extinction season. Like, the winner of the show being gone for a substantial portion of that season is just weird. Like, so imagine if it's Natalie, she's gone for the whole season.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it just wouldn't sit right with me. And like,
terrible way to tell a story. And it's like the only way. Like, there isn't a way that they can make that person more tuned in. Hell, Natalie has been as tuned into the main narrative as anybody on Edge of Extinction through, the finding of these weird little trinkets. But even there, not really. And nobody there knows it.
Right. But I mean, people will have gotten to form bonds with Natalie because they've been there forever. And so if they vote for her in the end, like, I'll get it. I just won't find it to be a good ending to the TV show that I'm watching.
Yeah, no, like, I don't want it to happen at all for all those reasons, but I'm not under the delusion at all that, like, a jury wouldn't do that. A jury wouldn't vote for their peer over somebody else. Hell yeah, they will. Those people who are on the edge, especially the ones who are there longer, maybe, not a Nick or a Jeremy, they don't think their experience was bullshit. They think it was highly real. And, I think Amber really, underlined that really well. I mean, we saw them give a round of applause to Natalie and Amber. Obviously, that was, Rob being like, this is a nice thing to do for my wife, but I should also throw the person who was here longer than her. But I think it was genuine. The fact that Natalie doesn't even feel like she needs to hide it anymore, that she has this. Let's share this experience because we're also starved for entertainment. No, man, that's like a real bond. Those people like went through some stuff. I think they will recognize it if they, also, feel like that person is better than the people that were there. And I don't want that to happen. I still don't want that to happen. So I have some worry, but I also have some excitement because I really think it could happen for the person that I want it to happen for. And now, man, I'm looking forward for this whole week.
It's going to be exciting. And of course, you can find all of our content about this season on purplerockpodcast.com. Andy already mentioned that Brad writes up the secret scenes. You can see those on Mondays. Got our fantasy league coming to an end, and we're still working through our 40 most influential survivors. And if you happen to be Rob or Steven, no, they are not ranked. I know we got a shout out.
There's no way they're listening, like ever, but especially now.
It was on Twitter that they found out about it. Come on, I'm not going to delude myself here.
Last week, we just threw caution to the wind. Obviously, put the Kim article we tried to spare, and I was like, screw it. All of it. And it worked in one way. Obviously, Jeremy did go home, but, our good friend Matt in his, weekly column about who's going to win this season made sure to write about Nick. So, we had 3 names and Tony survived. And now I think, next week, it doesn't like, the curse doesn't like last for 2 weeks. He survived this week, so we're in good shape.
Yeah, I'm totally hoping that that's true.
I mean, that's just math. I mean, like, obviously the curse is science, but this is math, so we're good. Next week is the finale. We are still formalizing the details and also whether we want to do it or not. But we're kicking around the idea of doing a live event for our podcast. It won't be obviously the night of, but keep your eye out for that, and also let us know if you'd be interested. Would you be interested in like watching us do a live podcast, via teleconferencing, or you'd be like, no, I'll just listen to it whenever I get to it?
And we'd totally understand if the answer is the latter, because please don't make us invest effort if you're not actually going to watch live.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's it. You should hit some theme music.